channel. This is Bestie Butch Hat, and today we're talking about
Iron Flame.
My name is Sarah.
I'm Veronica.
And today we're actually doing a giveaway for Iron Flame, the black sprayed edges. If you want a copy of this book, we're giving away one.
Uno.
Please write Iron Flame in the comments and subscribe.
Yes.
So if you're subscribed and you write Iron Flame in the comments, we will enter you in for the giveaway for a copy of Iron Flame with the black sprayed edges. All right, so let's jump into it.
Yay. Woo.
What did you think? What are your thoughts? Just overall, what did you give this a score as?
I liked Fourth Wing more, I think. But this one was good. I wouldn't give it a 5. I'd give it like a 4 out of 5. Yeah.
Give it a 4 out of 5?
Yeah.
I think I gave it a 3.5. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5.
You do half stars?
You can do half stars on Storygraph, but like I think on Goodreads I probably put it as a 4, and then on Storygraph I put it as 3.5. But it was definitely not like one of my favorite.
I feel it was very rushed. I do feel it was kind of rushed.
So my main issue with Iron Flame was that it really felt like it was a copy paste of Fourth Wing, as far as like if you took the outline for Fourth Wing and you put the outline for Iron Flame,
They're the same.
They're absolutely the same.
They're the same.
Even the end.
Yeah.
The end with a different point of view. It's completely the same, and that was really frustrating to me because that's not. It's not why.
Yeah, it's very. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't like, oh my god, either. Like,
No, it was very predictable. There's nothing really surprising about it.
Yeah, I expected more. Personally,
I would agree, especially for all the hype that the book had. Like I really liked Fourth Wing because it really did feel kind of fresh, like a little bit different for like a fantasy series. She changed it a little bit. But that's all she did is like she changed just a little things, and then it's just like we got a little bit more lore, but like overall I didn't think the book.
I was waiting for the big moment, I guess.
Well, you read it pretty quickly, so you didn't run into any spoilers either. Yeah, I did
read it rather quickly because I didn't want to run into spoilers.
I was expecting to read this a lot faster too.
I read it in a day and a half, and you read it in a week, and I was like, bro, hurry up. Hurry up.
So I had bought the digital copy of the book, and I was planning on reading the ebook. But as I kept reading it, I really wanted my physical copy so I could annotate it. And that was really important to me.
And
so my physical copy didn't come in until the Monday afterwards, after it got released. So it was really late. So I was only read, I think, the first 16 chapters. I went back and reread the first 16 chapters. And then I finished it in 3 days.
I finished it in a day and a half.
Just doing a recap, like when we start off with Iron Flame, we basically pick up right where Fourth Wing leaves off. So she's in Xaden's hometown, chatting it up with Brennan. Brennan gets called away to go meet with like the council. Yeah. So he kind of leaves her, and then she ends up following him because she like is refusing to take any direction from anybody at this point. Where she meets Imogen and Bodhi in the hall, and they're listening into the council meeting where Xaden's at. And that's the first time we see Xaden. Yeah. She decides, or I guess while the council is talking, they're speaking a lot about her and like what they're going to do with her, and Violet kind of interrupts. Yeah,
and it's like, I'm right here.
Yeah.
Mind you, they still need to make it back to Basquiat. Like, they haven't gotten there yet. They're still technically on War Games.
Right. So this is one of my predictions for the first book, is like they were still within the 5-day period about whether or not they were going to actually go back to Basquiat. And it's suggested by the War Council that they need to. And we find out that's because they need the luminary so that they can get the weapons that they're actually sending to the writers. That kind of gives them a reason to go back to Basquiat, even though they're putting their lives in danger.
Because I feel like if not, they wouldn't have gone back.
Honestly, I felt the whole reason why they needed to go back was kind of
stupid.
Well, other than meeting some new characters and getting the journals, the Luminary issue, the reason why they went back was because they needed the Luminary. That was resolved in the second part pretty quickly.
Yeah, we got it.
So it's just, like, their reason to go back was for that, but then it's a good thing, I guess, they decided to go back because they were able to explore some other avenues that we find out about later.
Well, I wanted them to go back because I missed, I can't say her name, Rhiannon. That she's, like, my favorite. So I'm just like, if you don't go back just for her alone... I'm gonna be mad because I like her little crew. I don't really Violet's
her squad.
Yeah, her squad. I like her squad. I don't really care for her. Violet's like my least favorite right now because I feel like the other characters have more depth and interest in them than she does. She's kind of wet blankety boring to me. She is. I'm sorry. She got a little annoying towards things. I was like, if you don't, he's telling you to ask her things, just ask the questions. Like, the whole thing was just ask them the questions. I can ask them for you. Like, I already knew what you needed to ask, like, 4 chapters ago. If you don't ask this man what you need to ask, then stop it.
So, some of the things that I annotated in the book were just some hints ended up playing out in the end. One of the things that he said very early on after they got back to Bestie, but sorry,
let's go back.
Skipping ahead, before we get there, one of the other things that they mention is after the council meets, they decide that they're going to go back. Brennan and Violet are talking again, and she finds out that there is a dormant ward stone. So that gives her the idea and kind of sets her on her path. What she's going to do is how to activate a ward stone, how they work.
Yeah.
And how they're powered. Xaden warns her to stay away from the archives, so it's enemy territory.
So of course she goes to them.
So she's gonna do it anyways, and then they go back. It's graduation day. They quickly hide Andarna, who we find out
is an adolescent.
She's an adolescent, but she's also growing, which we knew a little bit at the end. She's not gonna be
gold. Do we already know she's not gold anymore?
She's not golden. She's black,
not gold. She's black.
And Darna goes back and to go sleep.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't want anybody to know that she's transformed and what's happened. So it's because she's black.
Well, because humans don't know that. Remember, because they keep their.
She's keeping the young safe. She's keeping Darna safe.
Yeah, because the younglings are not supposed to come out until they're grown anyway. So nobody knows that they actually do that sleep.
Correct. So after Andarna goes and hide and Taryn and everybody, they go back to the dragon quarters. They go to graduation as they're reading the death roll, and Xaden's well, this is embarrassing, and then they have their first confrontation with Colonel
everybody.
Atos.
Yeah, which is Dane's dad.
Yeah, and he's the one who set up the war games. So they basically have to sing for their supper because General Sorengale's there too, and they're like, well, here's what happened. So they give them little half truths, which I guess
enough to get by to make sure they're a-okay.
Yeah. So they're able to stand up for graduation, and then we find out that Xaden's actually being sent to the furthest outpost.
On purpose.
So that they can only see each other once a week.
And it's keeping Taryn and Sigale separate, and that's where the problems come.
Right.
For them.
So they have about a week off before the next conscription day. I can't say this.
The next day of conscriptionness.
Yeah, so that's the next group of riders
Kids
that are going to be
rock
walking
the parapet. Yeah.
The parapet, and we have 2 new characters that we meet that are pretty significant.
And I like them both.
So we have Sloane,
which is Liam's little sister.
Yeah, and we have Arik Greycastle,
which is he's the son of the king.
He's son of the king.
Son of the king. He's not supposed to be there.
He's there under an alias.
But Violet knows him because the mom.
General Sorengale.
Yeah, they know. Yeah. She was like, ooh, I know who you are. And he's like, stop it.
So Dane, I guess seeing Sloane, realizing that it's Liam's sister, after she crosses the parapet, he decides, she was originally, I think, in first squad and ends up, putting her in his squad.
He did, a switcheroo, yeah.
As a favor to Violet, I guess. That's whenever, it's the same thing that happened in their first year. The dragons kind of look all intimidating, and then anybody who runs gets burned.
Yeah.
Same thing, except for Solus is a little bit more vindictive, and he actually kills people who don't flee. We get our first death then, and it was one of the other squad mates who didn't flee. It was Karen.
Yeah.
And so Imogen is devastated by this. This is one of her friends. I believe this is also one of the people that was in Resson.
Yeah.
So it's and then right before he's about to actually take Violet out, or at least the rest of the squad out, Karen shows up and then threatens Solus.
Yeah, and he threatens him, I think it was hilarious. He was like, I will, what did he say? He was going to swallow...
Yeah, I'll eat your human.
No, he didn't say, I'm going to swallow him whole and let him rot inside of my stomach. And I was like, yes.
Something really subtle.
Yeah, and I was just like, oh, okay. He's like, I'll take your other eyeball and this and that. And I was like, okay, Terrence badass. We always knew, but... we get more out of him.
After that, and everybody kind of goes off to their separate corners. They start their sparring. Through that, we find out that Sloane's actually really bad. Why? She's never had the same training that Liam did. Yeah,
because she was. Yeah, they did say that she can't fight. Yeah. She's not. She's big though. That's the only thing she has going for her. She's tall. And everybody, she does come off as a little intimidating. But once you figure out she can't fight, she can't do much.
During the sparring, because Sloane is all full of angst, I guess, decides to challenge Violet. She's like, no, this isn't, above you, whatever. So she basically turns her down, and then that's whenever a person goes up and says, "Excuse me, Violet Sorgale," and Nadine is like, "Oh yeah, popular today, aren't you?" And then like points to herself, "I'm Violet Sorgale," and then immediately gets her neck snapped.
That was shocking. That was like, I don't know. I was like, that was left field. Yeah.
And then he says
secrets die with people who keep them.
Yeah, which is exactly what Colonel Atos said after Zayden
So
and her
he's sending in assassins. Yeah.
She ends up fighting him. I feel like
barely.
Varys is already... They say something about him towards the beginning of the book, just basically saying that he was taken off like a certain type of duty because he's dangerous and he killed some people.
Right.
So he's obviously a psycho, like in the same realm as like a Jack Barlow. But
yes. So they're flight training, and he wants to know where Andarna is.
Yes.
And she's like, "Don't worry about it."
Yes.
Because we can't know that Adarna's asleep. She's like this.
Yes.
Through all the big major parts, she's asleep until the end.
Well, she sleeps basically the first half.
Yeah.
After that confrontation with Varys, Violet flies out to see Zayden for the first time. And well, it really felt like the only reason why there was a confrontation was so that there would be a confrontation.
Right, because I feel like...
It's like, it didn't seem necessary.
I was like, "Ma'am, sit down. Stop bothering that man." But at the same time, him too...
Well, for Violet supposedly being incredibly smart, like, her not being able to understand why Zayden can't tell her absolutely everything is kind of ridiculous.
Stupid. Right.
Like, she is the daughter of a general, so it doesn't really
make
a lot of sense.
You have trouble with keeping your shields up, and we know what Danon is and isn't capable of, so, like, he's wanting to protect his secrets not only because for him, but for, look at everything he's told you so far. He's literally running a revolution with your brother.
When she's heading back, her and Taryn are, I guess, having a conversation. She's like, "Okay, time to face the music." And basically, Varys' punishment is having her use her signet until she's close to burnout. And I think she says she strikes 40 times, Car's watching, like she's heating up. She does one more strike, and then she jumps on Taryn's back, and then he, like, basically, I think, plunges into a lake or a river or something to cool her off.
So I don't know. I don't like the whole their powers can burn out. Like, they can burn out kind of a thing. I don't know why I don't like that.
So I don't think there's any... Since I do read a lot of fantasy, I think that's relatively common.
A thing? Okay.
Yeah. So it's like... And I think they even say it at some point in the book. They're talking about magic requires balance. So having an endless well of power isn't really a thing. It's like the same thing. Like, you can't stay up for 4 days straight.
Right.
Without experiencing exhaustion. It's the same kind of thing. So, like, if you overexert your powers, there are consequences to doing so.
But she draws her powers from Taryn, though, right?
Yeah. So, but Taryn also, like, he isn't an endless well of power either.
Right. So you can only use so much. Yeah. But shouldn't she get double the power because she has Andarna who's asleep?
Well, she's only pulling that signet from Taryn.
But when they're together, could she pull...
It'll be a different signet.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Oh, yeah, because she's going to have a different one that we don't know what it is yet.
Yeah.
So she nearly burns out because that's like her punishment. And then, he throws her into the water to cool her off.
Yeah. So, and then she's met by Bodhi, and then they kind of help her and help her recover. After that, we're back in the classroom, of course, and we find out that the second years undergo a new class, which is the
torture class. That's all it is.
It's the Writer Survival course, is what they call it.
They're going to torture them.
Writer Survival course.
And that's when they pretty much show them, like, at some point in time, you are going to get kidnapped.
Yeah.
And you're just like...
And this is going to happen completely randomly, whatever. And it always ends up happening on the weekends that Zayden's visiting her.
Yeah.
The first time that this happens, they get put out into the forest with infantry and some scribes, and I guess some healers too.
Yeah, and they get a map, and they have to figure out where they're going.
Yes, and they have to find a certain point, so it's kind of like...
is this when they take their... This is when they take their powers, though, right? So they can't call to their dragons.
This is the first time that this happens. So, like, they're out there, they each drink water, and then the elixir basically shuts down their signet powers as well as, like, their connection to their dragons.
That was interesting. I did like that. I was like, okay.
Yeah. So they're traipsing through the forest, and then they run into Babe, which is Jack Barlow's dragon.
Yeah.
She's like...
Oh, shit. Yeah.
She's doing all the things that writers are supposed to do whenever you encounter a dragon, and then one of the healers or one of the infantry runs, and then they end up dying.
Right.
And then they end up failing the mission because they find out that they actually had 2 different maps and they didn't actually communicate. So that was their first experience with the RSC. There's also information that's coming in from the villages or the outer...
Because that's the underlying thing. Was like there's stuff going out, but they don't know exactly what's going on, but Violet does to an extent because she knows the true story. So they're telling the people in the village, like, don't accept people in seeking shelter, like, just...
I guess it's a couple different things because, like, I think Violet even says, like, they don't know if it's because of the Paromish people seeking shelter because of what's going on outside of the wards and they're trying to seek shelter inside the wards, or if it's, like, venom that are, like, coming to get you.
Right.
So that wasn't known, but it's interesting that more communication, even bad communication, is getting all the way into the college. So that kind of tells you, I guess, there's, like, a larger seeker going on here, that there's more people trying to infiltrate the college, and the situation outside of the wards is getting bad enough to where the information's getting in.
Right. So then Zayden finally visits. It's his turn to come and visit them because before she was going and then she missed. So now Zayden's come in. He gets there early and he's mad because he finds out that she's looking at the ward stones. Been good in the books and researching the ward stones.
The one place that he was like, please stay away from.
She went.
Yeah. So she's in the archives and she's like, no, I have a friend. And Zayden was like, well, I'm coming with you. I'm going to meet this person. And I thought this was interesting because Zayden insists on meeting Jesinia, and Violet actually says, so you can see if she's trustworthy by looking at her. Even you aren't that powerful, and we know
like he is. And
later, we don't know that at that point.
We don't.
So she's like, I feel like this is a part where like she's actually confronting him, and he's not telling her the full truth.
Yeah.
So he finds out that she's working with Jesinia in the archives. He goes and meets Jesinia, and then as he's leaving, they run into Nolan, and Nolan is on his way to the infirmary. And there's actually a comment made that like Caroline was going in with Nolan, but she didn't look sick.
Right. That was creepy. Yeah. That was weird.
Interesting. Well, obviously has something to do with Jack Barlow. Bodhi, in the meantime, after the first incident with the flight maneuvers, and Varish kind of like harping in on Violet, had been moving around their classes so she wasn't having to go to flight maneuvers. But I guess it's been a couple weeks. She's no longer to like avoid it. So she ends up going to flight maneuvers where she runs into Varish. Again, Andarna is still asleep. Varish is kind of gleefully ready to punish Violet for Andarna not being there, where Taryn decides like he's had enough of this, I'm taking care of it, and he goes and threatens Solus.
He grabs him by the neck
and like is biting down more and more, and like he's communicating with Solus like, I'm going to kill your dragon and therefore kill you if you do not, like, we do not answer to you, we are dragons, we do not answer to humans. Which I thought was pretty cool. Yeah. So Varish,
Team Taryn the whole time.
Yeah, Varish actually backs off as a result of this, and then I think that just makes Varish have to go a different route, which is why we see what happens next with the RSC.
After all that, Rhiannon and Violet fight. They have an argument.
Yeah, so this is
Rhiannon's pretty much over her already. That's why.
Rhiannon's confronting Violet because basically since she got back since graduation, Violet's been very reserved and hasn't been sharing with Rhiannon a lot. And Rhea just wants to know what's going on.
Right. She's trying to be the good best friend.
And then Violet has a complete breakdown. It's just like, I had to hold Liam while he was dying. This was really traumatic for me. I can't share everything with you because it's traumatic for me.
Yeah, they have a fight.
Yeah, so
which, I mean, is warranted on... I mean, I feel like Rhiannon should have argued with her because they're BFFs. And she's like, just I'm wrong. Talk to me. So I feel like...
Well, it's not like... Rhiannon at this point doesn't know everything that's going on either, so it's not like she can say, hey, this is what the problem is.
Right.
I just wanted to let you know that everybody's life's in danger, and if I tell you anything, you're probably going to die.
Right.
So she can't say that.
She can't say that, but... Yeah.
So this happens right before Violet goes back to visit Zayden, and her and Zayden, I guess, kind of meet in the courtyard, and Zayden's like, if you want to sleep in my room tonight, you better kiss me. Right. And it's like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and they kiss.
Then Mira shows up.
Yeah, and Mira's there. He was doing that, I guess, to make a point to her. But we find out that Mira is now at the same base as Zayden,
which I like because I miss Mira. I like Mira.
Yeah. So after that, like her sisters have a conversation. Her and Zayden fight.
Of course they do.
Of course.
All they do is fight. I'm just like.
Again, they're just, I feel like Rebecca was just trying to keep tension between them because that was like a big pull in the first book. It's like the whole enemies to lovers thing.
Yeah, and they made them lovers way too quick.
I don't even know about that. Like, I in the first book I thought it was fine, but like the reason why they're having conflict now is so that they can maintain the tension and you stay interested in these two characters. I mean, they still would have been separated, so I think she could have built tension a different way without making them so annoying.
Yes. They were an annoying couple. Okay, stop it.
So when they get back, Violet is in the sparring rings, and she has been actively avoiding Dane this entire time. Dane actually challenges her to a sparring match so that he can actually get some time to talk to her because she's choosing not to actually interact with him at all if she can prevent it. She's really worried that he's actually just trying to get more information out of her.
And he's not.
He's like, we've been friends since we were 5. Like, when are you going to get past this? And, like, she basically says, we're not friends anymore because you're the reason that Liam and Soleil died.
Right.
And he's, like, devastated by this. And, like, I guess as a way to kind of, like, get back at her or let her know that Xaden still has his secrets, he basically says, who do you think actually put the scars on Xaden's back?
They fight on the map. Dane reveals that the mom is the one that did all the lashes to the back of Xaden's back. Is it when they're walking out that they all get kidnapped?
Yeah.
So now they're kidnapped for the RSC.
They get kidnapped again. And just in time for Xaden to be coming into town. So they get kidnapped or they're held in a dungeon. And then their goal is to either escape or to not break the interrogation.
Because they're each given a secret that they can't reveal.
Right.
And Violet, being the poison master that she is, realizes that the water, they can't drink it because it's the same one as before. So
she's able to maintain her connection with her dragons as well as Xaden.
Yeah, they all do. But it's, what's his name? Varys shows up, and he's going to be the one that's doing the torturing.
Yes.
And I was like, okay.
Psycho.
So, yeah, he's the psycho. Violet's tortured horribly.
So she's the main one that's tortured. Like, her squad mates are all just kind of strung up, but she's actually the one that's undergoing torture.
Right.
I think she loses consciousness because her arm is, like, punched out of socket. Nolan comes in to heal her arm. She comes back to consciousness, and Nolan basically buys her some time to get Varys away from the interrogation chamber.
Yeah.
So that Rhiannon and her team can actually escape. So before that, Dane comes in. Varys is trying to use Dane to read her mind.
And that's when everybody learns what Dane's thing is.
Right. The whole squad learns what Dane's signet is, and he's like, dude, Varys, like, this was supposed to be confidential. But he denies doing this because he quotes the Codex, Mr. Rule Follower, and leaves. So after Dane leaves is when Nolan comes in. She gets her... She loses consciousness.
This is when Nolan helps her. Nolan helps her.
He heals her, buys them about an hour, and this is when we find out they're trying to escape, and the dagger that she has on her, the runes, actually unlock. Once they get out, they actually run into a professor for this RSC class, and they're like, oh, congratulations, you won, and they're all like, give me my patch.
Yeah, give me my patch, I can go.
And, like, Violet's in the back, like, hobbling along and falling apart.
Yeah, like, good job. Right.
So they get their patch, so I guess they're all happy for about half a second. She convinces Xaden not to come find her because... I guess a part of the interrogation with Varys is that they were seeing whether or not Xaden would come to her rescue. And if they did, that would, like, prove the connection that they have. So she had to tell Sigale and Taryn and everybody, like, don't come for me, I'm fine.
Yeah, she was telling Taryn, so Taryn could tell Sigale, so Sigale could tell that. It's, like, weird how their minds work, but yes.
All connected, except for Andarna. Going back to Battle Brief.
Yeah.
Like everything's normal. You just got tortured the day before. Happy Monday morning, and everybody's going back to Battle Brief.
Right. And I'm just like,
really? It's weird.
It's like, okay.
Okay, so after they go back to class, there's some leaflets that are left.
Oh, the propaganda is on the chair.
Yeah. So Violet keeps looking at Professor De Vera. Throughout this, and she's looking at the pamphlet, and then she puts the pamphlet in her pocket, and like she's like, oh my god, she's like, maybe De Vera's on our side or whatever. Markham, who's the archives dude, ends up covering it up, and he says they're gonna do like deflect and
whatever,
and distract.
Right.
That's what they do, and then just randomly, they're like, hey, by the way, Jack Barlow's back.
That was so stupid,
annoying. Here's the thing, and let me just say.
Well, I want to get this out. I know you hated him because you don't like when people come back from the dead.
Well, yeah.
That is your biggest pet peeve in any story, anywhere. Pet peeve for people to come back from the dead.
Here's my thing. Why? This world is so vast. There's so much stuff going on. Mm-hmm. You really had to recycle a bad guy. Yeah. There's so many options.
They did.
They had to recycle Jack Barlow in order to, I don't know.
But what was the reason? Why are we healing him?
This is the most like ruthless war college where they just like, when you die, it's not a big deal. Yeah. We're gonna throw our like new recruits off of fucking building. Parapets and stuff. No, let's bring back the dude that died. That doesn't make any sense. Yeah. It makes no sense. Yeah. I'm furious.
And then he just walks in like hey guys, I'm here. I'm just like, this is so dumb. Like, you could have brought anybody back. Like,
you don't need to bring anybody back.
No, I mean,
when people die, they're dead.
No, I mean, like, anybody else could have been like the villain in this.
No, that's exactly my point. This is
you had Varish already as like the villain. Yeah. Like, make him more.
You could have done anything with that character.
Yeah, he could have been a lot more evil. I feel like.
Well, he was already like top.
No, but he could have been like
both psychopaths.
Like, you literally could have made him the one that was messing with the ward stones at the end. Yeah. It didn't have to be Jack Barlow.
That kind of gives us a little bit of credence as to why Nolan's been so busy.
But other than that, did Nolan need to be busy? No.
Well, they were bringing people back from the dead, apparently.
But I'm saying, what was the reason? Is it because later on they're going to be bringing people back from the dead?
They're still reeling from the fact that
Jack's alive.
We also find out that during battle brief that there was an attack on Samara, which is where Xaden and Mira are stationed. Mm-hmm. And Violet panics and runs out of battle brief.
Why?
It's because all the emotions from Taryn were coming through her shields. So she panicked and left because Taryn was
and then she puts on Bodhi's jacket. She puts on Bodhi's jacket.
Bodhi puts on the Bodhi jacket. And then of course the first thing that happens.
So then she goes and finds Xaden. He's fighting with Garrick, who I love. Yeah, but he's mad, like, why are you wearing Bodhi's jacket? Like, bitch, I just flew 18 hours.
Yeah. After they calm down, Violet goes with Xaden to go hand off some of the daggers. Oh, yeah. To some of the flyers from Kaldir.
Oh, that's when we meet Kat.
Now we meet Catriona or whatever the fuck.
I like Kat.
Kat can fucking...
I liked her. She was like a spicy little...
I'm sure they're gonna like change it up to where she's actually like decent.
Redeemable. But she was a bitch and I loved it.
No.
I liked her being a bitch.
Unnecessary. I'm sorry, not a girl's girl.
No.
Like fighting over a man. Fuck her.
No. She was fighting over his spot. She wasn't. I don't think she didn't.
That makes it worse.
She didn't want Xaden. She wanted his power to be.
Not her power. She wanted his title and his status, which actually makes her worse.
Yes.
Worse.
I liked her.
Absolutely not.
She was a dick.
Not acceptable.
She was a bitch, and I loved it.
No, I hated that character, and it also seemed like really unnecessary. It's like we're trying.
Oh no, she was totally unnecessary. She was totally unnecessary, but she was just so different. Nope. I liked her. Nope. I wanted her to just fuck shit up.
I hope she falls off her griffin, and I hope it's painful. So after she meets Catriona, and she doesn't understand why her emotions are all over the place, she ends up flying back to kind of face the music, and immediately gets confronted by Varish, who searches her immediately, accuses her of like impersonating a superior officer because she's wearing somebody else's jacket. She sees Rhiannon in the hall.
She's poking her, because she has Xaden's dagger.
Yeah.
And she's trying to be like, shit, not supposed to have this.
Yeah.
Like, I need
so
to
she
hide
gives Rhiannon the signal, and Rhiannon, with her power, she's able to move objects.
Through the wall. I was like, good job, girl. Yeah. You pulled it through the wall.
Comes to Violet's rescue just in time. So, and then I believe one of the other professors, I think it's Kaori, helps her out because like Varish is like interrogating her, accusing all of these other things. She's like, no, he's not. That's fine.
Quit your crap, yeah.
Yeah,
You're reaching.
Lets her go with a warning, of course, and then she goes into Rhiannon's room,
and then she spills the beans to everybody.
Yeah,
so that's when she finally spills the beans to Riddick.
She lets them know that the dagger is for killing Venom, and that was the big secret. Mm-hmm. Violet confesses everything, and she's like, look, there's a dormant ward stone. I'm trying to figure out how to raise the wards, how to repair them here. I've looked in all these documents, all these historical information, and I can't find anything. And Riddick, of all people, is
he's like the frat boy. Yeah. He's like the frat boy, just happy to be here. I love him too.
Yeah. And he's like,
Wait.
Oh, what about the journals? And then he's like shocked that it's like, I know something you don't.
You don't know. Yeah, like, I know something that you don't know. What?
Now we have a new path, a new thing for them to look for, so that they can start that process. This brings us up to threshing for the first years. And our two new characters, Arik and Sloane, are both bonded to dragons. Arik is bonded to a blue dragon, and then they say Sloane, just like her brother, is bonded to, I believe, a red dragon.
Right.
Yeah, it's a red dagger tail or something, just like her brother, and it's really sweet and cute. I guess a part of being a second year, and I don't remember this being mentioned before this incident happened, but...
You have the patrol.
Yeah.
So and I don't remember that either.
So she goes up to the tower, runs into Aya, who she's actually relieving from duty.
Right.
Then they're attacked by assassins. Aya is killed, and she's one of the people that was in resin with them. Violet's basically almost thrown over the tower, but's hanging on for dear life. And then Jack Barlow is the one who comes to her aid and pulls her up the tower, saves her life. So they have like a confrontation, and basically he's like, we're even, life for life, and she's like, this doesn't even make sense, life, that kind of thing. I literally killed you, so if anything. He leaves, and then Riddick shows up.
Yeah, and then he talks about because is he the one that has a crush on Jasenia?
That's Sawyer.
That's Sawyer. One of them has a crush on her.
So Riddick went to go talk to Jasenia about the journals, and then that's when we find out that the journals are actually under lock and key, set up by wards that only the king or people of the royal bloodline can access.
So that's when they have to pull in.
Everybody in their squad, so Rhiannon, Riddick, Sawyer, Violet, Arik, Xaden, and Jasenia are all just casually walking towards the most guarded place in the archives.
Except you can't see Xaden because he's in the shadow.
So Arik agrees to do this. It's of course very tense because it's like down to the last second because they only have an hour or they get locked in with no air. But they make it.
Of course they do.
After the successful mission in the archives, everybody kind of goes their separate ways. She's saying bye to Xaden. Xaden has Warwick's journal, and she has Lyra's journal. Yeah. So Xaden leaves. She's standing in the yard where she's confronted by Nolan, and he gives her the lemonade, and she drinks it, and that has the elixir that's going to block her off from her dragons. This is when she notices that she actually has a scribe's bag, which is white and not a black bag. She was caught with Lyra's journal. Xaden got away, and the Warwick's journal is what goes to Brennan. Yeah. But she gave it to Xaden to take to him. Even though they successfully retrieve both, Violet does get caught, unfortunately. And
this is when she's tortured for like 5-6 days?
It's 5-6 days.
But then Liam's there with her.
Yeah, and I thought that was interesting. Hallucination.
I thought that was interesting because it's like he's actually there. Mm-hmm. It's not like she's imagining him. It's like as if he's actually in the room with her, which I thought was weird. Because it even talks about like after it's all done, like he walks out with her. Mm-hmm. So I was like, don't tell me that's going to be her thing. She can speak to the dead.
That's actually really helpful.
But I feel like that's what it's going to be. But it's like to me the whole time it's like, is he, for a minute I was like, is he there? Because it feels like she's speaking to him as if he's in the room with her, not just like a hallucination, if that makes sense.
I think she actually said it was a hallucination, so I took it at its word.
Yeah. But I don't know, I feel like she doesn't know what her new power is going to be. I don't know. I just feel like that might be something like hinting at her new power, that she's going to be able to talk to the dead.
The only reason why I would say that's not what it is because she had taken the elixir that her signet would still be blocked. She can't access Andarno to pull that power.
Oh, that makes sense. But I want her to talk to the dead.
Okay, well that's interesting.
I want her to talk to the dead. And then Dane comes in to read thoughts again.
Liam tells her that, like, in theory, based on what his powers are, she should be able to show him what she wants him to see. Right. So she projects what happened in Resin and the Venom and her holding Liam and everything else. It's kind of traumatic. Right. Dane immediately pulls away and he's like, they're smuggling weapons. Yeah. So you're like, fuck you, Dane. Right. God damn it, Dane. She's expecting like Dane to automatically kill her, and then he ends up stabbing Varish.
Yeah, because he's over it.
Yeah. Right as this happens, Nora comes running and she's like, Varish, like all leadership is to report. They're calling everybody in on whose orders. General Sorengale. Everybody needs to go up,
because report. We now learn that Zane has been dropping Raven all over the place. So
the reason why it took him so long to get there is because he had to hunt down riderless wyvern killed them and then was just dropping them all over the border.
As a way to be like...
as a distraction to get all of the upper leadership out and then to go in and rescue
her.
Dane's trying to help Violet out of the chair and Nora's like blocking
the way
exit.
And then Xaden kills her.
Yes. And then Xaden like comes to the rescue and then murders Nora
rightfully so.
Immediately.
Yes.
And that's whenever we see Xaden know that like he's probably behind all this stuff. So as they're trying to leave, Dane is almost killed by Xaden immediately. Yeah. Because like he sees Violet, he sees Dane, and then he just like automatically assumes that Dane is on Varish's side.
But we know now later on because of his little signet that his intentions were good, so that's why he wasn't killed.
Dane and Violet and Xaden are on their way up the stairs to get to the flight field to get on their dragons and fly away when they run into Violet's mother, Lilith. So this is actually a pretty big reveal because a lot of people, especially with the first book, were really thinking that her mom was a bigger baddie than she actually is. Yeah. Violet's mom, Lilith, basically says, the reason why I forced you into the Writer's Quadrant is because if you went into the Scribe Quadrant, you would have died. Yeah. Because Markham's idea was to have you continue to keep the secret and keep all this information. Mm-hmm. And then if you had found it out, of course, you would have done the right thing. Right. So I forced you into the Writer's Quadrant to give you a fighting chance for survival, and so that she wouldn't have to uphold Markham's legacy. Lilith ends up letting them go. Right. They run into Garrick after they talk to Lilith. Garrick's like, let's go. And Violet's like, wait, we need to give everybody a chance
to decide what they want to do.
Yeah. So Dane actually ends up calling
everybody.
Yeah.
And then
they explain everything that happens through their dragons.
Like 200 some odd people decide to go to Ryerson House.
Yeah. Yeah. So including Dane and then the Professor Devera, I think it is.
And then they take off to Ryerson House. And that's how that...
And we also find out that Jack stays behind. Mm-hmm. Then they arrive at Xaden's home and they're like, hey, you said you wanted more writers. And then that is the end of... the fuck? Yeah. And that is the end of part 1.
Part dos.
Okay, so when we jump into part 2, we immediately start going back to class.
What is up with them and going to school so much?
That didn't make any sense to me. It's like
let's make a new school. Why?
If you are at a location that is outside of the wards, and then you have brought baby eggs to a place outside of the wards. The only thing you should be... the entire school, anybody who can read this language, should have been interpreting that damn journal. Everybody should have been working on this nonstop until a ward was established.
And I understand the idea of we have first years here and second years. You don't need to have formal class for them. Just get them with their dragons to practice. But the professors... I agree. Everybody who knew that language should have been reading that freaking journal.
That made no sense.
Put it up on a projector.
They're like, oh, we're gonna have another. We're gonna go to school. We have some professors here. We're gonna teach you some things. Oh, everybody go to history class, even though like literal doom is raining down on us.
I understand. Like I would have understood. Like, okay, we're gonna have like combat class. Those of you that aren't riding your dragon good, like we're gonna make sure we get some flying classes in, like basic needs.
That is the most important thing. You have like all of these unprotected people. Yeah. But okay, beginning of part 2, and
let's go back to class.
And
Darna's awake. Thank
wakes
God.
Up after.
And she is sassy.
After all that time, but we find out that Andarna's wing
is clipped. Not clipped.
Not clipped. It's not.
It can't come out all the way. She can't fly.
Yeah, it's a little underdeveloped, so they're having to work on that. But that means Taryn basically tells her that she won't be able to hold a rider, which we're all pretty sad about. And Andarna being obstinate is like, I can do whatever I want. It felt like it was probably one of those things that like, it's going to be an obstacle for them to overcome. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like they're setting it up for the next book. They're saying it can't happen, but
it's going to happen. Mm-hmm.
This was hinted at in the first part, at the very beginning of the book. Xaden refuses to make a deal to get the luminary, so that's one of the missions that they go on. Mira, Brennan, and Violet try to be sneaky
and go without
while Xaden's out, and go.
But of course, Xaden's there.
Fly in to try to get this luminary, and she's thinking all I have to do is like do a lightning strike,
show, and he's gonna let me go.
Yeah, which isn't what happens.
No.
So when they get there, Catriona is of course there. Xaden actually
is already there, of course.
And we don't know why. They're shown to their rooms. Mira and Violet change into different clothes to go to this dinner.
Oh, we skipped the whole part. Mira finds out Brennan's alive.
Oh, yeah.
I forgot she didn't know that. So Mira finds out that Brennan's alive and she loses her fucking shit, and I love it.
I know, she punches him in the face.
Yeah, she punches him and is like, I missed you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
After the whole thing with the wyverns, Mira defects with, I guess, the rest of the people.
Yeah, she defects and then she meets Brennan.
She arrives at Rorison House with everybody else, sees Brennan, and it's just like...
and then punches him in the face.
Rightfully so.
I would have punched him too, yes. That's what he gets.
So they go to Corden, they change into some fancy-ass clothes to go to dinner, and then that's whenever Violet is expected to do this light show, essentially. Mm-hmm. So they go down into these pits... And it's raining, or it's starting to rain, and she's thinking, they're bringing out this chest, and she's thinking, oh, I just gotta aim for the chest. If I shoot enough lightning down, it'll get close enough, and that should be enough,
and
right?
She can't aim.
They come out with the chest, and chest pops open, and a venom falls out, and she's like, well... And Mira, during this, decides to go down there with her. So Mira and Violet are now in a lot of danger. So the venom is like falls out of the chest. He's immediately on the ground, and Violet is like it's starting to rain, and Taryn is like panicking, trying to get to her because they don't have a lot of time, right?
Right.
The venom, once he gets out of the chest, immediately goes to the ground and starts to try to pull the power. So they have a very limited time before that reaches them, and then they get the life sucked out of them, similar to what happened in Resin. Mm-hmm. Mira's power is shields or extending the wards, right. And it says at the beginning of one of these sections is that she's not able to do it individually. She can only do it off of an existing power source. So Brennan's down there with her. Mm-hmm. And he's basically saying, like, Mira, throw your shields right now or we are all dead. And she ends up actually being able to, for the first time, create a shield just around her and her siblings to save them from the venom's power. He's coming after Violet, and that's right as the time as Taryn's, like, beaming down, picks her up, gets her off the ground, so she does a lightning strike where it's raining and zaps the venom, and the venom dies. Right. So whenever they finally land on the edge of the stone, like, stadium, Xaden is actively killing the king. Right. for having done that to them in the first place. So Xaden had warned them. I guess his cat is begging for her father's life. Violet has to go over there and be like,
stop it.
Cut it out. We need the luminary. You can't kill him. So after he releases them, they come up with the deal that they can get the luminary, but they also have to take the griffins with them. Right. And that's where we get to the next part where them actually, because the griffins can't fly at the altitude that they have to walk up the mountain, which is very like steep and very narrow, acclimated to the altitude and learn how to fly up there with the dragons. They're starting to do the hike up the mountain, and they get up a certain ways. They run into Dane.
Yeah. Course.
And Dane's like, hey, by the way, there's a trap up there that we haven't triggered yet. We're not sure
what it's gonna do.
Well, no, like they know it's gonna come out of like the cracks in the wall, but they can't figure out where, and they don't want to trip it. And you also have to jump over this like small embankment in order to get over there. So like you have to jump, but you have to jump in a way that you don't land and set off this trap. Right. Because the entire mountain range around Rorison House is warded in traps, so that
people can't just walk up there and do
Yeah. There's another person, a part of their camp, that is very similar, I guess, to Violet, in that she's, like, smaller. Her name is Luella. Yeah. So, as they're trying to jump over, Riddick makes it, but Luella slips. And in the process of trying to save her, Riddick gets shot, like, triggers the trap, gets shot. Yeah. And Violet tries to, like, grab onto Luella, but ends up losing her grip, and Luella dies. Yeah. But then Kat immediately blames
her for
Violet's for death. Yeah.
Yeah. For that death, even though it was like, I wasn't going to be able to catch her regardless. Like, because I think she was having both. Did she have both of them in her hands? So they were saying she purposely saved one over the other. After
Luella dies, her griffin, Sibby, I think it is also dying. It's like how their bond works is a little bit different. So Sibby is in the process of dying and is kind of like on the edge of this mountain whenever a wyvern comes out of fucking nowhere and snatches her and kills her.
Right.
We're just like,
damn.
That was rude.
That was like out of nowhere.
Violet, who dislocated her shoulder again throughout this.
Dane popped it in. Doesn't Dane pop
Dane popped in the shoulder, secured it with a belt, and then she had to like take off the belt to get on Taryn to go fight these wyvern. And she's trying to protect everybody. There's a lot of clouds. She uses her power. She's able to, like, I guess, reconstruct her powers to actually aim and kill these 4 wyvern that were stalking them in the clouds. So she uses the clouds as a conductor, essentially, to kill these wyvern and save the rest of the people. But Kat is very pissed off about the whole situation and keeps blaming her for Luella's death. Her and Dane are kind of repairing their relationship. Yeah. They both know Old Lucerish.
Oh, the dead language.
The dead language so that Warwick's journal is written in.
So they're working together.
So they're working together to translate the journal, which honestly still doesn't make sense to me why you would have 2 people working on this and not 50, 70, a million. Every single person who can speak Old Lucerish.
Well, I'm assuming because nobody can.
I think it's more than 2.
I think those, because didn't a lot of scribes go? I would feel like more scribes. I feel like Yesenia should know it. I would think.
I think they say which is she. I think she speaks the language that's on Lyra's journal. But
I'm with you that more than 2 should know that language.
I know, but like, it would be like a call to every single person that is in Rorison House. If you speak Old Lucerish, if you know Old Lucerish, you need to come read this journal. Right. Every single person should have been reading those. It's like if you're going to be the new country and like you're going to share information and you're going to teach everybody the real history, this is part of it. So it's like the fact that it was just them translating the journal took freaking forever. Yeah. While they're translating the journal, we also learn about runes and imbuing stones. So after they've escorted the griffins up over the mountain pass and everything, this is whenever the griffins and the dragon riders aren't really getting along. They put them in the same squad, and then they give them a chance to fight it out, to get whatever their frustrations are about each other, so that they can start acting like a better unit or something.
So to act like a better unit, kick each other's asses.
Of course, Kat challenges Violet to a fight. They begin sparring, and oh my god, would you believe it? Xaden trained both Kat and Violet how to fight.
The best part about this fight was Taryn and Andarna in her mind, and Andarna's like, just do it, kick her ass, fucking go for her eyeballs, and then what is Taryn? Taryn tells her to go for something else instead.
And Darna's like, scratch her eyes out.
That was like the best part of that part. She's like, you're capable of great things, murder her!
Really, the eyes are the softest tissue. Just jab your thumbs in there.
And then what does Taryn say in response? He says something smart back.
And Darna, use some common sense. The kneecaps are much easier target.
It's like, yes. So I thought that was stupid. The whole, like, oh my god, he trained us both. Of course he did. Yeah. But then she remembers what Rihanna taught her and ends up.
Yeah, so she was also trained, like, she's like, you know, Xaden trained us both, but Rhiannon actually trained me too. So she ends up fighting. Almost kills her because Kat is using her power that she has to
heighten her emotions.
Catriona refuses to tap out even though she's losing, and she's using her emotions to make Violet kill her for some dumbass reason. Xaden steps in and pulls her out of there. Catriona is actually called out for like cheating because she's using her powers against Violet. Even though Violet, I guess, won because Catriona didn't tap out, like nobody really won, so I guess they're still an even kill. I really just hated this whole part and that character. I thought it was dumb. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, I don't think it was necessary. I hated it.
Of course you did. You don't like when girls fight.
No, I don't.
It's like when they fight over a boy, there's a whole war going on.
Issue. And you guys are fighting over a boy. What in the Bechdel test are we missing here? Like, come on. There's a bigger issue.
I just like them fighting. I'm all for a good cat fight.
No.
I don't care what it's over. I like when 2 girls just fight it out for no reason.
They can.
And then, is this when she makes the finger comment?
Yeah. While they're fighting, like, she's, like, antagonizing her by saying, like, making her insecure about Xaden and saying, well, I taught him everything he knows. Xaden gets her out of there, like, takes her into the throne room, and he says something like, my house, my throne, my woman. So she could, like, after that, like, I guess he also kind of explains a little bit more about, like, what her power is. She can't heighten emotions that aren't there.
Right.
After, I guess, learning that and, like, you know, Xaden once again professing his love for Violet, she feels a little bit better about it, so she actually confronts Kat, like, the next day. She still has the bruising around her neck from, like, where she almost choked her to death. And basically, like, antagonizes her back. He's like, oh yeah, that finger thing you tell me about? Thanks.
Gracias.
And then, of course, like, Riddick and Rhiannon's like, yeah.
Yeah, they start laughing. Yeah, they're hilarious.
So after that, again, just another side
story. The bigger story overall, impending doom.
Dane finally
translates
something that's helpful. So they figure out...
He's helpful, yay!
They figure out that there was like a word that Violet had mistranslated and that he's going in and fixing. Mm-hmm. And then they figure out how they can actually imbue the stone. And the entire time that this is happening, they're actually, I think, Violet and Xaden are imbuing the stone a little bit with their power. Mm-hmm. Back in Bestie, Violet was working with Carr on developing her signet power, and now at Raritan House she's working with Felix, who's one of the members of the council. And he's really surprised to find out, or maybe not so surprised, to find out that Carr was only getting her to use her strikes, but not aiming. So he gives her a stone to actually help imbue the power and maybe help focus it a little bit more in order to get her to do strikes in certain locations. Learning how to imbue stones.
Because we're talking about the stone, so she could...
Yes. So Felix is the one who is like, Carr was afraid of you. That's why they never taught you how to aim. You're on your way to be one of the most powerful writers of all time, especially for your class. But he says something, and I think this is very significant, and everybody should take note to it. It's called, and he says, you wield pure power that takes the form of lightning, because that's what you're most comfortable shaping it as. Apparently, Carr never taught you that either.
So she has different... Her power...
So I think...
She's going to have more power, but she can do it to different things.
So why I think this is significant is because... Taryn calls her a lightning wielder, but what she's actually wielding is pure power.
Right.
And that's significant because that's what we learn about the Venom later on.
Right.
What their sources of, what they're looking for, what they feed on, pure power. So her signet being essentially pure power that's wielded as a lightning wielder is significant. So where we're at in the story, Dane correctly interprets Warwick's journal and saying that it has to be imbued with the fire, dragons, and so after she actually finds out a way to activate the ward stone based on Warwick's journal, they have a meeting with the Flyers to let them know that once these wards go back up, you're going to lose your power, but we're not going to leave you powerless because we're going to give you these stones that we've been imbuing with our power so that you can still wield in some way, shape, or form. So you'll be powerless within the wards, but in the long run it's a good thing. We just want to let you know before we put up the stones so you can decide how you want to proceed. So after they tell them that, Xaden comes back and she's like, hey, Xaden, I know how to raise the wards, but be right back. I gotta go on this random scavenger hunt for my team.
Yeah.
As if getting the wards up isn't the most important thing.
Yeah. Why would you go on the scavenger hunt?
Makes me so angry.
Wards first, scavenger hunt second.
Absolutely.
So they go on the scavenger hunt.
So it's Vizia, Sloane, Kat, and Violet, and her group of 4.
Right.
Vizia is the chick that Kat kept saying, you saved Vizia, who's one of the dragon riders, over Luella, because, you have a preference, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. So
Vizia dies. So while they're on this hunt, they actually they're in a cave, and Darna insists on going, and Darna's like, it smells like other dragons. So Violet's assuming that the other teams that they're working against
are in there,
are ahead of them or are closing in, and that's whenever they run into Solus, which is Varish's dragon. He attacks, and Darna comes, saves the day, and she's like, hold your breath. He blows fire. And unfortunately, immediately Vizia is swatted out of the way, and whenever that happens, she breaks her neck
and
dies.
Yeah,
so it's just, at this point, it's just Kat, Sloane, and Violet, and Darna fighting against...
And Rhiannon's in there too, no?
No, Rhiannon's not a part of this group before.
She wasn't with them? Okay.
So while they're walking through the cave, this is whenever Sloane says the thing about... If you bonded a dragon that somebody else in your bloodline, like your grandfather or somebody,
she drops that.
You get a second signet.
Or the one you have is heightened.
Or you go insane.
Or you go mad.
Yeah, so it's
So that's when I think that's kind of when you start piecing together that something's going to be up with Xaden, because we knew that Sigil had bonded to someone in Xaden's family.
Correct.
And obviously he didn't go mad. He has a second signet. And she's called to Taryn, obviously.
Well, Taryn can't get there. He's trying to, but like
he can't get in because
the path is too narrow. So he's either trying to find the way that Solus got in, but really it's Kat, Sloane, Violet, and Adarna fighting Solus. Yeah. So, and Darna is actually the one who ends up killing Solus after
everything, and Taryn
and Kat ends up saving Violet's life.
Right, and then that's when Taryn says that it's hard for a dragon to kill another dragon or something like that, and it's a lot on Darna, and he says he wished he would have finished him off. But Darna was a badass.
They get out of the cave. Violet is once again in the healer's quadrant, and then Xaden's like, "What the hell happened?" He bursts in, all angry, and then they have another fight.
Of course they do.
So in the midst of this fight is when she asks Xaden, like, "What's your second signet, Xaden?" And then he, like, freaks out. And then somebody knocks on their door, and of course they can't finish that conversation, because why would you actually ever be able to finish a conversation once you drop a bomb like that? The reason why somebody knocked on the door and interrupted them is because they found out that a horde of Wyvern are very close. So it's like, okay, we need to get the ward stone up and working, get the wards done now. Instead of like spending 6 months not doing that.
Right, instead of wandering and
So
hunting.
based on the information that they got in Warwick's, they actually end up being able to put up the ward stone in some form or fashion.
But it's not right.
Something's wrong, because what they find out after they put it up is that the flyers still have their powers.
So they know
it's up, but it's not
perfect
up to the point that it needs to be.
Right.
So they actually end up flying out, I guess, to the ends of the wards to see whether or not that works. They see some Wyvern actually fly over the wards, but then they kind of drop dead. Whatever Venom is with them at the time kind of flies back. And he's like, okay, not today.
Right.
While they're waiting for the Wyvern to actually come up and die because of the wards is whenever Xaden decides to tell her what his second signet is, and we find out that he's an intrinsic, or a type of intrinsic. He can't actually read people's thoughts, but he can read their intentions. So if you go back to part 1, whenever she's like, "Oh, you want to meet Jacinia so that you can figure out whether or not she's a good person, you're not that powerful." He actually is. That's exactly what he was doing.
Dating right away. But the part that I found interesting was Taryn didn't even know from Sigil. So then they're fighting. That was kind of like a oof too. The fact that Taryn didn't know either from Sigil. Which I'm kind of glad he didn't, because then I would have been like, really, Taryn? Another secret you have from Violet. But yeah, so they were all in the dark.
Who the fuck cares?
What?
Why was that such a big fucking deal?
That he knew? That he could read minds?
That he knew what her intentions were. Who cares?
Oh yeah, I don't know.
Who cares?
Yeah.
Why was that so devastating? Like, she was so upset whenever one of the professors killed somebody who was an intrinsic in her first year.
Yeah, I remember that.
And she was questioning, like, the necessity behind that. Then she realized it was because of the safety of the rebellion, but didn't say it was necessary for any other reason. Like, you know, it's like keeping people safe is necessary. Like, you don't need somebody reading your every thought. Right. But... And
then you find out that that's exactly
and she's
what
immediately
Xaden
just like,
yeah,
that's too much.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I think Xaden is like, you know, it took you, like, less than a minute to, like, fall out of love with me. And she's like, my love isn't fickle, but I'm really upset about this. Yeah. I think it plays into, like, a bigger aspect.
Yeah, because my thing is, like...
Of the book later.
Yeah, it's one of those, like, okay, and...
So after this, the whole thing, like, she finds out what his second signet is. He's totally honest with her about it. She immediately judges him, and he's like, that's not what I didn't tell you. Yeah. They figured out the wards are kind of working, and then they get this message from Melgren that they want to meet. Mm-hmm. So they go... Melgren is there with General Sorengale, and Mira goes with Violet, and Brennan also decides to attend.
Yeah, he's like, hey, Mom.
Hey, what's up? Melgren basically tells them, like, hey, we need your help.
Yeah.
We see this.
We need your help.
We never helped you guys, but we need your help. They see the outcome of this battle at the base that Xaden was at and find out that they lose. Right. So they're seeing if they can get some additional help to defeat them. And during that confrontation, they basically decide that they're not going to help them. Yeah.
Which Violet doesn't like, of course.
Right. She doesn't think it's right, but Brennan decides to step out of the shadows, and General Sorengale's like, yeah, Brennan's alive!
And he's like, hey, Mom.
Yeah, and that was the big to-do. Yeah. That was the big to-do. So after they find out that Brennan is alive, General Sorengale's like, maybe it's Melgren. I don't remember. One of the people. Hey, your wards aren't working.
You messed up somewhere there, buddy.
Something's wrong. And by the way, here's this journal from Lyra so that you can figure out why. And General Sorrengail hands over the journal that Violet had tried to take, and then Varish had confiscated. So
that was her way of trying to make some peace.
She's trying to keep her kids safe. So they find out after meeting with Melgren that the battle isn't going to take place at this outpost. It's actually going to take place at Besgaeth, where the Wardstone is. And the whole point of this attack is actually a distraction so that they focus on the wrong thing, and then they take down the Wardstone. So Violet ends up with her squad. So this is Rhiannon, Sawyer, Riddick. Mira decides to go. Xaden. A couple other people decide to go and actually defend Besgaeth because it's really important that they keep the wards up.
Right.
So they fly back to Besgaeth, and they're starting to spread the word. They get word out to her mom, and everybody's saying, like, this is where the attack is going to happen. This is why Melgren didn't see it, is because we were actually going to help here. As they're preparing for this battle, the day before it's actually supposed to take place, I think Violet and Xaden are trying to have, like, one last quickie before, like, they die. Mm-hmm. And Brennan shows up, and he's like, please remove whatever body parts or wherever. Yeah. That's whenever we find out that Brennan has shown up with some more of the people from the council, as well as all the flyers have come to help save the day. So they go into battle with what they believe is several hundred, if not several thousand, Wyvern, in addition to Venom, that they're fighting. Jacinia has also gone back to Besgaeth and is still actively translating Lyra's journal while Violet is fighting.
Right.
Let's back up. So right before the attack, Jack Barlow is in with the Wordstone, and he is on Bade's back, and he actually kills Bade.
Bade, right, yeah.
And then cracks the Wordstone, so the wards fall. Mm-hmm. So that's how they end up actually being able to attack. So they're desperately trying to get the ward back up, but they know that they're going to have to fight in the meantime. Mm-hmm. And she's fighting with Rhiannon and Sawyer. Sawyer loses his leg. Riddick almost dies. It's very traumatic. They get Sawyer back on the ground, get him to a healer. Mm-hmm. This is whenever Jacinia approaches her and tells her how to get the Wardstone. She gets Andarna, tells her, get your butt over to the Wardstone. Mm-hmm. Jacinia,
her crazy self,
ends up translating the journal, and there's one difference between Warwick's and Lyra's, because I guess General Sorrengail is the one who said that, like, Warwick, for whatever reason, didn't want the information for the wards to know, but Lyra did, for whatever freaking reason.
Don't know.
So it's actually the 7th dragon, or the 7th breed of dragon, is what lights the stone, and then it's imbued with power.
And of course, that's when Violet realizes that Andarna is the 7th species.
Yes. So I guess they have like a war meeting beforehand. She talks with Coda about helping imbue the stone, saying, like, you know, I know the secret. Are you going to help me? And he, like, basically, like, gives her a nod. And Taryn's like, are you courting death, child? Like, talking to Coda? Why are you doing that? Violet's intentions was actually to die to imbue the stone. Right. But her mom comes up and is like, I'm going to do it. Yeah. And uses Sloane, who's her signet is Siphon, is to be a Siphon. Violet's, so she's like, I'm the one who killed your dad or whatever. Yeah.
just to egg her on, just to make sure that she, and then the king's, what's his name? The king's son's there, and he's the one that's holding Violet back too, because Violet won't stop it. He's like, if I have to choose between you and your mom, I'm choosing you. Yeah. So let it happen. Violet's
being held back by Arik. She's like saying, no. Brennan, I believe, is there. Arik is like apologizing to him. I'm so sorry. Like, this has to happen. And she says, her mom says to her, like, while she's dying. No, but I feel like everybody, like, really thought that Lilith Sorrengail was, like, this terrible person, but she says...
No, she wasn't.
You're everything we dreamed you would be, Mom says quietly, her skin paling even as Sloane flushes scarlet. All three of you. She looks down at Brennan, and I'll get to see him soon. So, I know that a lot of people really thought that, like, she didn't love her husband.
No, she did. Yeah. She loved her husband.
Yeah, so I think that her main goal throughout all of this was to protect her children. And I really think that, like, she was actually devastated whenever Brennan died. Yeah. And definitely, like, sad about the loss of her husband.
You could tell in this book more that she really did care about her husband. Yeah. She really cared about her kids. But she, at the same time, she was a general, so she had to be a hard ass.
She dies to imbue the stone. Mm-hmm. And I think she says... And when Indarna moves, my gaze wanders up the mended warstone to the iron flame that burns black on top. It's all that's left of my mother. And during that whole time, like while Violet was trying to imbue the stone, her and Xaden are kind of talking to each other, and she's like, I love you, and they both can feel each other kind of like dying, flickering out. They're both nearing towards burnout. So like Xaden's in a state of mind thinking like, Violet's trying to die for me, and Violet's like, I'm trying to die for Xaden and the greater good, and like they're both idiots. Yeah. But then her mom ends up dying, and then basically the wardstone works and blasts all the venom, the Wyvern fall dying, and the venom like fall back if they don't die outright. But the sage does survive. After all of this happens, she talks to Taryn, and Taryn's like, alive, because she sent him to go protect Sigale while she was doing this. She's like, alive.
Everybody checking in on everybody.
Yeah.
Right.
So she's checking in. So he has a moment where he's like, he's kind of telling her about what happened. It's like, I killed, like he's staring off in the distance. He's very like
stoic,
emo in his feelings about this. And he's like, I killed him, snapped whatever tether he had on me and killed him. His body fell into the ravine, and now I keep watching the river like it's going to pop back up, even though I know he's miles downstream by now. She's like, hey, I got the wards up. I figured it out. I'm so cool. And he's like, oh, good. Then you won't be scared. Like, why?
Why would I be scared?
Why would I be scared?
What's happening?
And he's like, you'd be scared of me.
Yeah. And then he like she could see his eyes.
Yeah, so he has the red ring around his eyes, which is the same thing that Jack Barlow had.
Yeah.
When all the shit went down. So that's essentially the end for Violet, and then we get Xaden's point of view, which is the exact same thing that happens in Fourth Wing. We get left with a cliffhanger and one point of view from
And I don't like Xaden's point of view in this book, because I had to reread it like twice, because it was very confusing.
So what happens with Xaden is that he's reliving
in his dreams.
In his dreams, a nightmare or whatever, what happened in the last battle. Find out that he was indeed close to burnout. He was fighting the Venom. And the Venom tells him the same thing that actually Violet dreamed about earlier, which I'll get into in some of my theories later, but like that he would turn for love. So he ended up turning to kill this one Venom by pulling the power the way that they do, and that's what causes him to turn. So he does that to save Violet, presumably.
How? I don't know, yeah.
So he wakes up. He's like, oh shit, I had a bad dream. Him and Violet are still sleeping next to each other. So even though he's Venom now, I guess she's comfortable enough to hang out with him.
That's what I don't understand, but yeah.
And then he goes to see Jack, who is currently in the same dungeon that Violet was tortured in.
Yeah.
And he's being fed whatever elixir or serum to keep him from being able to pull power from the earth.
Yeah.
And that's whenever Jack says that, this is one of the things that kind of confused me, but he said, like, I'd rather die than become one of you. Xaden is saying this to Jack Barlow.
But it's like, you are.
And he said, and yet you just did. Yeah. He's like, and he laughs, all this time you've been convincing everyone that you're the hero, and now you'll be the villain, especially in her story. Welcome to the fucked up family. Guess we're brothers now.
Yeah, because he's Venom now. So.
Yeah. So that's the end of Iron Flame. So it's another cliffhanger, and it's going to be about a year.
I don't feel it. I'm not like one of those that's like, oh my god, I can't wait for the third book. I'm like, please take your time writing it.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot. Because it has the potential to be really good, and it also has the potential to be really bad.
That is Iron Flame. So what we know at the end of this book is that we know how to raise a ward. We're assuming that now that the Wyverns have been dropped all over Navarre, that
people know about them now.
Since it's no longer a secret, at least there's a potential for Besgaeth and the Peromish people to actually work together, to actually start fighting this, so they can actually get on the same page. So let's talk theories. What do you think is going to happen?
I don't even know. Like, I feel like my main theory through the whole thing is her mom had to have been Venom at some point in time. Violet's mom. And that's why I feel like Violet is the way that she is. It's why the dad's dead. I'm sure the dad knew how to save the mom. So I still go back to that whole, I think Violet has this thing where she can speak to dead people or something like that, because she's going to be able to talk to the dad, and the dad's going to help her heal Xaden. But I also feel like her and Xaden are going to fight, and she's not going to love Xaden in this book. Like, she's going to, like, go back to Dane. I really feel like she's going back to Dane in this next book.
So here's my theory in regard to the Dane situation. Because what I was mentioning regarding what Felix told her about her power and it being pure power, my assumption is that Xaden is going to accidentally harm Violet in some way and is going to banish himself, and his absence is going to leave the door open for Dane and Violet to have a relationship. So that's what I think happens in terms of her and Dane.
I can believe all that happening, yes.
In regards to her father, I think what happened to Violet is she might have been around, or given that like her mother was a general and of such high ranking, I think at some point when she was a child, she was affected by venom.
Yeah.
And I think that's the reason why her dad was researching all the different things that he was. Like, we know that he was researching the feather tails. We know that he had the book on the venom. I think the reason why he died was because he was poisoned. Because of all the research that he was doing, and because they were trying to keep it a secret. Not necessarily that General Sorrengail was in on it, but like, she probably knew that when he passed away, it was because of what he knew. And I think that was his role in it. I've seen a lot of things saying that like Violet's dad is obviously Venom, and I don't think that's the case. I don't think
he was Venom. No, I don't do.
I think what's more likely though is that this is where I always go back to, why is it Navari is keeping this a secret from the citizens? And a lot of people are saying it's about crowd control, and I think it's larger than that. I think the reason why they're keeping it a secret is because the royalty is actually Venom.
Right.
And that would make more sense because, like, if you're a general of the entire army, you're going to be in contact with the king.
Right.
And I think the king probably had something to do with Violet being sick.
Right.
And that's why Arik, the king's son, joining the army, because he
agree with it.
Knows
too much,
a little bit more about what's going on actually within the royal family.
Yeah.
And that's why I think that they would keep the information on the wards
secret,
so locked down. That's why they would keep it from the people, so that they wouldn't know what to look for within the royal family. And and again, if we go back to the reason why the Venom are so bad, is because they're always seeking power.
Right.
That's what Jack's problem was in the first book, right? So he's always trying to go and hunt down power. They said that he actually turned while they were still sparring. So like even before, I believe, threshing, like he was up to something.
Yeah.
So and he was always like aiming for that little extra, like he wasn't, and he actually said at some point that, like, you know, these dragons, they're nothing, like, we are the powerful ones, something along those lines. And because of like his attitude towards everything is why I think that somebody in a king role would be trying to hang on to power the way that they would be. So that's my theory, is that it's
so you think we're going to get more royal family influence?
Yeah, and especially with the introduction of Arik, I think that's really significant. Another thing that I thought about, I think in the next book, the reason why Xaden is actually going to depart is because I think Sigale is actually going to shun him because of what happened with Bade and Jack. We saw Jack actually being able to control Bade whenever he killed her or him. I think Taryn is going to keep Xaden away from Sigale to protect her for that reason.
When Jack kills his dragon, why didn't Jack die?
Because
he already had died?
Maybe,
he's Venom?
But he's Venom. I think the reason why riders die without their dragon is because their power, their life force is tied to the dragon, and Jack's life force is now tied to where he's pulling the power from now. I also don't think that Xaden is necessarily dead.
No.
I just think he switched up his power source, and it's an evil power source, and that's what changed
maybe he
him.
doesn't need Sigale anymore either, too.
I don't think he needs a cure, so to speak, or like he's not dead in the same way
as Jack. He's not as far gone as Jack.
Well, not even that. Like I definitely think it gets worse over time. But
I do see a power struggle, not power struggle, but like something's gonna happen with Sigale and Xaden and Taryn and Violet, because it's just they're all intertwined with each other so much. And then with Xaden being Venom, can he still get everybody's attentions? What are his intentions now that he's Venom? And then,
well, I think that
since their minds are all connected, does it? Yeah, so that's flow.
That's the other thing. Like Xaden's going to be pushed out of any type of strategic meetings because he's compromised. Yeah. He can't learn anything that that the rebellion knows, which I think is going to lead again to a separation between Xaden and her and Violet, and that's why they're not going to be as close. I definitely think that's Xaden's endgame. I just don't think that
they're gonna have to separate them for a little bit just to make it more interesting too.
My last theory. It's like, I think another thing is like that they were hiding, that Lyra I think is going to allude to a little bit more, is that there was actually the first writers, there's actually 7 of them.
Oh, because we have Andarna.
Yeah, because we have Andarna. So I think that's going to be really pivotal, and I think what Violet's going to end up doing is she's going to reestablish the first 7. Because if you look at how everything is set up, there are actually 7 dragons for the 7 riders. So Rhiannon has a green, Imogen has an orange. I think Sloane or Dane, they both have reds, but it's going to be either one of them. They have the black dragon, which is of course Terran. Arik actually has a blue dragon. The brown dragon, I believe, is Riddick. And Andarna will be the 7th, and she doesn't necessarily need a rider. So I think that's one of the main things.
Well, it'll still be the 6, it's just one of them will have it'll be 6 humans and 7 dragons.
Right. That I think is really significant, is that she's reestablishing the first 7 to vanquish the Venom.
Which is what they did.
And one more thing I want to actually mention that I didn't bring up, very beginning of the book. The very beginning of the book. When she's talking to Brennan, before, like while they're talking about the ward stones, she's talking about going into the archives, and Brennan's like, something killed the Venom 600 years ago, and we're going to find out what it is.
Right.
And then when we find out at the very end that Andarna is actually the 7th dragon, she says, I was born 650 years ago. It was why I was left behind.
And it was why
I waited 650 years to hatch.
And I waited for you.
So obviously Andarna is the answer.
Right. Obviously.
To why the Venom have been vanquished. Her breed of dragon. And she's a purple dragon. If you remember from how they describe her scales, that like in certain light is silver.
She's iridescent.
Purple. Yeah, so she's going to be a purple dragon.
She's so cute.
Or a rainbow dragon, I don't know.
Theory or whatever that I liked was, when it gives you before the chapter, it has like an excerpt from blah, blah, blah. Everything's in past tense.
Yeah.
So it's like, I know one of the theories is that Yesenia is the one that's writing everything because all this is over with. And so we're actually reading like the scribes. You know what I'm talking about?
Well, I think it says at the very end, this was all faithfully transcribed.
So does that mean everybody's dead?
Could be.
That would be amazing.
So my other theory is that there's a good possibility that Andarna's going to end up mating another dragon, leaving an egg behind, but her dying is going to be what kills the Venom. Andarna's.
No.
My theory, though, is that that's going to be the case. That's how it's going to be written. Andarna has to die in order to kill off the Venom, but...
Because that's why there's no more of her species, because they're all dead.
But...
What?
Violet's going to figure out how to save her.
Yeah.
And that's going to be her whole thing for, like, the last book.
I feel
Andarna has to die, but Violet is going to figure out how she can live.
Yeah, because
and kill off the Venom.
Yeah, because there's a whole... because we can't kill off Andarna. I think people would riot. But it would make for a good book. But I don't like it. Yeah, there's a lot of theories, but my main one is I feel like she's going to go back to Dane, and I feel like there's Venom somewhere in Violet's bloodline. I love that nobody knows what species she is. I think she says except for the elders know what she is. I still want to know, like, more about the dragons. Like, when they go off with the elders, like, what are they doing? What's happening? I
was really hoping for more different point of views. I think that would have made this a lot more interesting. I was disappointed in this book overall. I really wish that they hadn't used the same format.
The same outline?
The same exact outline.
I didn't realize how much it was until we started talking about it and you kept pointing it out. Like, I knew there was some things, but yeah.
So frustrating.
Yeah. But I did give it a 4.
3.5. Alright, so that was Iron Flame. Thank you guys so much for watching. And don't forget, we're doing a giveaway.
Yes.
So if you want a free copy of a Black Sprayed Edge Iron Flame book, please remember to write Iron Flame in the comments, and you gotta subscribe.
Yeah, you have to subscribe. If you don't subscribe, you don't get to be in it because... Yeah. Subscribe it. Hit the button.
Bye.
Bye.